Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast, A Court of Heaven and Hell. I'm Lauren, aka Heaven.
And I'm Ellie, also known as Hell.
And if you don't already know, we are a book podcast that focuses on different romantasy series and novels. Today, we will be finishing our coverage of A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas with chapters 73 through 82. As always, the episode will include plot summaries of each chapter, as well as discussions about the characters, events, foreshadowing, world building, themes, and more before we finish off with any possible theories and Maasverse connections. Last week, we covered the start of the final battle, the death of the bone carver, and the return of the Archeron sisters' father, as well as Miryam and Drakon and Lucien. Now, I want to go ahead and give you guys a spoiler warning. We are fully diving in, so we may need to speak about the other books in this series. If you have not finished her other works, you will be safe until the theories portion, where I'll give another small spoiler warning. But for now, as long as you've read all the books in the ACOTAR series, you're safe to keep listening.
Please see our show notes for content and trigger warnings. We are an explicit podcast for adults. Check out our past episodes where we have deep dive into the rest of the Sarah J. Maas universe and other popular romantasy novels. Lastly, take some time to rate and review us, or if you're watching this video on YouTube, please subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments. And now we finish with the last chapters of Wings and Ruin.
Ooh, yay! Let's do it.
Starting with chapter 73. The plan is for Nesta to lure the King of Hybern away from the Cauldron as Feyre and Amren go use the Cauldron to destroy him and his army. The Weaver provides a diversion as the King of Hybern appears, but he snaps her neck immediately. It's just him and Nesta while Cassian is hiding, waiting for the right time to make his appearance. Amren and Feyre finally make it to the Cauldron. As Feyre is holding one hand on it, she's feeling everything and nothing at all. But Amren has another plan up her sleeve. Chapter 74. Feyre isn't able to get away from the Cauldron as she now sees what the Cauldron sees, a battlefield where they are losing. Back where Nesta and Cassian are, they are ready with their swords out. Nesta is literally charging the fuck up as the King of Hybern winnows in front of her with a blade on their dad's throat. The Archeron dad apologizes to Nesta for not being there, and she offers up the Cauldron's powers, but the King of Hybern snaps his neck. Cassian goes one-on-one with the king and ends up with broken bones and unable to move. Nesta tries to attack Hybern with her power, but it's not enough. She goes to Cassian, shields him with her body for their final death blow as Elain comes out of nowhere and puts Truth Teller through the king's throat. Chapter 75. Nesta runs up to the king, takes Truth Teller, and decapitates him, fulfilling her death promise to him and Akamath. The army still don't know the king is dead, and the Cauldron is in a frenzy seeing that Elain defended the one who took the power from it. The Cauldron retreats back to itself. Feyre is back in her body, and Amren explains she has to sacrifice herself into the Cauldron to take out the armies. Feyre understands now why Amren lied to her and tells her she is glad she met her. Amren goes into the Cauldron and comes out in her true form. She takes out all of Hybern's armies before diminishing. Chapter 76. The Cauldron is broken, and they need to reseal it because it's a massive void that's growing. Feyre and Rhysand use their powers to reseal it, but Rhysand knows it will be too much for him. Without telling Feyre, he makes that sacrifice. When the Cauldron is resealed, Rhysand is dead. Chapter 77. All the High Lords come to see what is happening, and Feyre begs them to help him like they helped her under the mountain. They all give a bit of their power to revive him, and Tamlin swoops in at the last moment and tells Feyre to be happy. Slowly, Rhysand comes back to life and says he has one more gift. He was able to reach out a hand to Amren and bring her back as well.
Chapter 78, with the battle finally over, the Archeron sisters have one last thing to take care of. Returning to the clearing, they prepare their father for his final voyage. They say their last goodbyes, and Feyre uses the little bit of power she has left to cremate his body and let the wind carry away his ashes. Lucien finds them there and checks to make sure that Elain is okay while reacquainting with Feyre and telling her everything about his journey in search of Vassa. After speaking with him, Feyre heads back to her tent to finally clean up, but finds that Rhys is not alone. It's time for her to officially meet Miryam and Drakon. Chapter 79. Making their acquaintance, they tell Feyre that Rhys was just filling them in on her story. She wishes to hear theirs as well, but when time is not of the essence. She asks them if they killed Jurian in their fight in the battlefield, but they tell her more convinced them not to. Liking them, but having pressing matters on her mind, Feyre asks them if they will take the Cauldron with them to Kratia before another fight starts amongst the High Lords about who should lay claim to it. They agree, and Feyre asks them to help her to call a meeting. With the help of Miryam and Drakon, Feyre gathers all the High Lords and their courts, Miryam and Drakon and their court, Lucien, Vassa, Jurian, and Grayson, and holds a meeting to discuss a peace treaty. Chapter 80. At the meeting, everyone shares their stories, starting with Feyre. Some good, some bad. But talking about the issues gave them a starting point for how things could be going forward. Feyre acknowledges that they will have a long way to go, but at least the discussion is happening. Some of both the humans and Fae are weary, and they do not come to a decision about the wall. The High Lords argue the most, and their temporary alliance quickly unravels, but they all agree to come back and discuss at a different time and place. Jurian approaches Feyre after the meeting and reveals Vassa has offered him a place in her court, but he doesn't know if he'll accept. What he does know is that he believes peace and a better world is possible. Back in Valaris, the inner circle is happy to be home, but unsure if any of them are the same. Amren is even crankier. Nesta is quiet and seemingly wanting to be alone. Elain is somewhat back to her happy, soft, and kind self and declares the first thing she wants to do is build a garden. Feyre agrees that the world could use more. In Chapter 81, we switch to Rhysand's perspective. He sits outside reflecting on the fact that they really won and listening to the sounds of his family simply being happy. Cassian and Az come out to check on him and confirm it's real. Rhysand says he doesn't want to fight again for years to come and that they will spend the time rebuilding, brokering peace, healing, and simply enjoying what they have created in this new world. And finally, in Chapter 82, we're back in Feyre's point of view. After everyone goes to bed, Feyre goes up to find Rhysand. After some flirting, she tells him about how scared she was when he passed and how she never wanted to go through that again. They make a pact to go together next time, marking their left arms with a new tattoo. Rhys picks up Feyre and carries her over the city, flying over their people until she's able to fly by herself, and he falls in line beside her. Together, they fly off into the night. And that's Akawar, you guys. Cute. Let's get into the last bit of big plot points that happens in these stretch of chapters, because obviously the end is just wrapping up everybody's stories and preparing for what comes next. But there is still a few really big moments that happen earlier on in these chapters, starting with getting to the Cauldron, which we know is where we left off. Amren and Feyre are trying to get to the Cauldron. Nesta and Cassian are going to lure the king away to create a distraction, and then this happened.
I need to bring up the Weaver super quick because our girl really just throws herself into this. She basically sacrifices herself. It's definitely a theme of these chapters, which I'm not sure how I feel about that, but
yeah.
The King of Hybern immediately kills her, or so we think, because Feyre does question, how can you even kill a death god? Her body's gone, but she gone. We don't really know the answer to that.
Yeah. I feel like both her and the bone carver are definitely dead.
Rip to the Weaver.
Yeah. I think she's dead. I don't know if we'll see her again, but if we do, it will be in my thought process, it'll be in a much later book and maybe not in this world, so.
While everyone is doing their duties, Feyre is the one who has to use the Cauldron to get it to destroy the King of Hybern and his armies. But while she's using it, Amren slams the Book of Breathing shut and kicks it behind her, and it's just, sorry, girl, but
yeah,
I lied to you. And Feyre's, what the fuck? But she can't really pull away from it because the Cauldron's really strong. It's she almost becomes the fucking Cauldron. She's seeing what it's seeing. The Cauldron immediately is trying to find Nesta because it's I need my power back, bitch. And going through the battlefield, she sees Elain and Rhysand, who are fighting the King of Hybern's armies, and they transform into these beasts. They're true form, if you will. All the High Lords have some type of beast form. But Rhysand is described as having dark scales or feathers, talons, a terrifying face, and It's the same creature that is carved on the Court of Nightmares. On the other hand, it's described as being the daytime equivalent to him, and he's gold.
Yeah, it's basically he turns into Howl creature form.
Yeah.
That's literally what I picture. A lot of people have surmised that these books are somewhat of a fan fiction of Howl's Moving Castle, whether directly or just like closely, but like that form is straight up when Howl turns into his like creature form or whatever. But we also learned that it's like what's carved into the hewn city on his throne or whatever, and it's reminiscent of what Feyre turns into as well. It does make sense to me that Feyre and him would have the same kind of form, seeing as how that probably she takes after him in so many ways. And it's probably her choice what form she turns into, because Feyre can literally shapeshift into anything. She literally turned into Ianthe. So she can she turned into Tarquin. She turned into, she turns herself Illyrian. Feyre can shapeshift into anything thanks to Tamlin's power. But it is interesting because Tamlin it's like they're all shapeshifters, but Tamlin is more so, that's part of his ability. Whereas like the other High Lords, like they can shapeshift, but they can only shapeshift into one form. And it's implied that Tamlin can shift into anything, but we still only ever see him shift into that one form. So that's interesting to me.
That's so true.
That's
what the fuck? Because that's literally his power, shapeshifting. So what?
Yeah. I don't know why he would never shapeshift in anything else, or maybe he does, and we don't know. I don't know, but I just thought that's really weird because it's, okay, all of them can shapeshift into these beast forms, so that's not specific to Tamlin, but they do tell Feyre that her ability to shapeshift comes from Tamlin. I don't know, but anyways, it does make sense that Elain would have the same form as Rhysand, seeing as how they are literally night and day. It does make me question what Thesan turns into. So lots of questions there, but that was just, again, something that just made me be like, why is it that we never see Tamlin shift into literally anything else other than this beast, which I would assume is his High Lord beast form, but they also attribute the shape-shifting ability to him specifically.
Before the Cauldron shifts his attention, Feyre sees what... Okay, I just pointed this out because I don't know if it's significant. It probably isn't. But I was just, okay, weird. Because this man keeps popping up, like, in this fight. But the Cauldron sees that there's this commander that Rhysand and Elain are about to fight. And he has, like, this amethyst light around him. But Elain wants to take him on personally.
All the people from Hybern are some special shit, but have we run into another character that would be like, that would have that kind of power, like a sorcerer or any kind of person that would have that kind of power? Because it was weird that she focused on that so much.
I Googled it. I'm trying to see if I can see anything. Okay, actually, I think I might have found the answer. Actually, the color amethyst is associated with Hybern's spells.
Oh, okay. So he's basically a spell master.
So, yeah, so that, and then also, I don't know what book this is from. This is just from the internet, but it says that when the king was firing a bow and arrow, it was tipped with glimmering amethyst power. And also when Elain was trapped in his camp, she had the bounds on her, and it was like amethyst light. So it sounds like it might just be Hybern's color.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, so I guess that... Never mind. Ignore all of that, y'all. But at least we worked it out.
That's true. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, because that also stood out to me. Like, not noticing them talking about amethyst at all.
It's such like a certain color that it's,
I would think I would recognize that popping up all over the place, but that's funny.
Okay, to get to the big 1-on-3 really battle with Hybern. Oh my gosh, this is probably my favorite part of this part of these chapters. It's just badass, and yeah. So the Cauldron shifts its attention to Nesta. Finally, it finds her, and so Feyre is like watching this through the Cauldron's eyes. Remember that, okay? Because this is like from her POV. But so she sees that Nesta and Cassian are ready for Hybern, and Nesta's literally, she's bitch. I'm like a beam of fucking power right now. Like, she is saving up all her power, like literally full charge, just waiting for this fucking dude to winnow right in front of her. And she's literally just ready, just waiting. But the King Hybern, oh my god, he's so annoying. He fucking winnows in front of them, but he has their fucking dad he was holding his dad with a fucking knife to his throat. Obviously, Nesta was like,
yeah.
God damn it. Ugh. Gosh, I hate this guy. Anyways,
yeah.
The king taunts them both about their relationship and is so shitty of him. And Archeron dad doesn't look away from Nesta and tells her that he loved her from the moment she was born and is so sorry for everything. And she's like, what do I have to give you for you to give me back my dad? And the King of Hybern was like, I need your power back, bitch. And she was like, okay, you can have it. You can have it. And he was just like, oh, I will pry it from you if I need to. And their dad's like, don't touch her. And then he just snaps his fucking neck.
Yeah. It was fast. It was abrupt. Like, I did not remember it being that abrupt. Like,
it was so quick.
I was so happy that he got to say his goodbye, like, and at least tell her he loved her and apologize. But the King of Hybern was over here, then he killed the Weaver, then he like had Nesta's dad, then he was in front of her, then his neck was snapped, and then I was like, holy shit, this is just like
yeah.
like, happening fast as hell. Yeah, but he doesn't stop there.
Cassian immediately attacks him. He's just like, what the fuck? So he immediately attacks him. Nesta's kind of just like frozen. And the king snaps his leg and snaps his fucking wings. So Cassian is freaking prone. Like, he fight at this point. And Nesta is pissed off. She's like starting to charge back up. And she promises that she's going to kill him. And she blasts her power at him. But it doesn't really do much. He ends up punching her in the fucking face. And she's on the ground now with Cassian. And she's trying to help him up. But she literally can't because this man's probably like 300 pounds of fucking muscle.
Yeah.
And
hard to imagine Lord Farquaad with 300 pounds of muscle, but yeah.
No,
I thought you
Cassian. Like, she's trying to help out. She's trying to like, she's trying to help out Cassian. And
yeah.
She can't because
she can't pick him up.
He's like a little fucking 500-year-old fucking warrior. And I'm just like, this girl. So she can't help him up, and she's just like, fuck this. I'm just gonna stay here with him. So she decides to shield him with her body on top of him. And one of my favorite quotes ever of this fucking series. Cassian tells her that his biggest regret is them not having time and that they will find each other in the next life. And he ends up giving her like a little kiss. And they're literally just waiting, just laying on each other, like waiting for the final blow. But all of a sudden, King of Hybern's like getting ready, and Elain's ass fucking stabs him to the back of his fucking neck.
Hell yeah. So my question here, or not my question, my thought process here is that this is the prophecy that Elain told earlier. He'll break your bones, he'll tear your wings.
Same.
But because she knew about the prophecy, she knew when she would be able to attack. And that's why she was able to sneak up on him and like basically kill him. Nesta finishes him off, but she definitely like mortally wounds him. Or fatally wounds him. And that is why I'm assuming it's because this is the prophecy that she had about Cassian being broken again. And it was stopped because she stopped it after she saw it. So I guess that's not confirmed, but that is like how I read the situation, which makes future books really interesting because it just makes me feel like if Elain can see things and then change the outcome of things, like they're not necessarily set in stone, that's really interesting to me.
That makes sense that it's the vision that she saw, because as y'all know, I'm not on board with Cassian dying. That's disproven. I'm kidding. It's not disproven, but most likely, realistically, probably was Elain seeing this. And she's making a knowledgeable choice of what to do during the battle because of that vision. So,
also, did Azriel winnow her there? Because it says she stepped out of shadow, right? But then Azriel's never mentioned. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought it said she stepped. Maybe it literally meant like the shadows. But then I feel like that's a little Easter egg because it's like,
what if she has like another power we don't know about? Absolutely has to be the sneaky assassin of the three sisters, because it just makes fucking sense. I feel like all of this is just foreshadowing her being so similar to Azriel and being like that person who isn't necessarily a warrior, but they gather intel and they know everything, and They're sneaky as shit. It just makes fucking sense for her.
Yeah, no, I highlighted this. I can't believe I didn't put it in the outline, but it says, Elain stepped out of a shadow behind him and rammed Truth Teller to the hilt through the back of the king's neck as she snarled in his ear, "Don't you touch my sister." Stepped out of shadow, but Azriel's not there? Really interesting.
Where's Nuala and Cauldron during this? I can't remember.
They don't say.
We don't know.
Yeah, they literally don't say.
It
I
could
would
be
assume
them.
back in
Right.
Valaris or whatever, but if it was them, definitely could be, but you would think she would say that. You'd think she would put them there.
Because I also was gonna say, the scene that we were just, what the fuck, when Elain just gets up out of fucking camp and just walks out, I literally was like, why wasn't Nuala or Cauldron there? Her.
That's true. So we didn't think they were here. But also,
Right.
What if the reason no one saw her is because she cloaked herself in shadow?
That'd be so bad.
Crazy theories.
Hey,
not
what
us doing a theories in the middle of the not us doing a theories in the middle of the episode.
I'm really holding out for this bitch because I'm just like, no, she has potential. I see her.
Just saying. Now a Court of Iron Shadows is sounding pretty crazy.
King of Hybern goes down. He's, oh my god, what's this happened? I'm so stupid for not thinking of something happening to me. But so Nesta immediately grabs Truth Teller and fucking decapitates his ass and just stares at his fucking head.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? And the book is casting smiles at her. I'm like,
yeah,
it's weird, but okay.
I get it. That's my girl.
He's like, that's my girlie.
That's my girl. I don't think Cassian's scared. I think Cassian's proud, especially because Nesta made that happen. Nesta has no training. Nesta's been in the house. Nesta got no muscles. She couldn't pick up Cassian because she can't lift anything. The girl probably can't lift 50 pounds. But I'm saying, like, she's definitely weak. Like, it's something that they've made after point to point out. So for her to have the strength to do that, do you know how much strength it takes to cut through sinew and tissue and bone?
True.
And like, it ain't for the weak. So he's probably, that's my girl.
So after the king is dead, the Cauldron is freaking out because it's offended that Elain defended Nesta, because the Cauldron looks at Nesta, oh, this is the bitch that stole the power from me. Mm-hmm. But it looks at Elain like, I gave her power, so she should be helping me or something. I don't know. It's like the Cauldron is like confusing me a bit. I still don't like, I'm like, it's like low-key like sentient.
No, literally, I was just about to say it's a sentient being. Like, everything that how they describe it in this book is it's a sentient being that has its own thoughts, its own, not feelings per se, but so yeah, really interesting.
It's upset at Elain, so it does feel, which is strange. And then, but I'm not just like, obviously whoever is the Cauldron is like an almighty, powerful ass being. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, why would you let the King of Hybern control you then? I
take it as it's whoever made the Cauldron is a powerful being, and part of their essence is in the Cauldron. Mm-hmm. And so I think that it is like an extension of them, but it's not them, if that makes sense. And so I think that it is still a tool that can be used and manipulated by whoever has the power to do that, which isn't just going to be anybody and everybody, which I think we pointed out before, but I do think that there is something special about the King of Hybern that makes him able to use it. But I think that, like I said, as an extension of that person, like there is a certain limit to its abilities. Like, it can't control itself, like it can't control other people, but it still has feelings, if that makes sense. It still has its own like agenda and its own like emotions, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's complicated, but that's how I've taken it. Is it does have its own it definitely has its own like agenda and thought process, and emotions is such a weird word to use with an inanimate object, but like basically, yeah. But like at the same time, it's like it's not the all-powerful being itself. So it has to bend to the person who controls it to a certain extent, if that makes sense.
The end of this book made me have so many more questions about the Cauldron.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a big focus. The Cauldron's not going anywhere. That's
it's gonna come back.
That's gonna come back. Yeah, like the fact that it was
literally it has to
with Drakon and Miryam. Like the Cauldron is a huge, and I have just thoughts about the Cauldron. But yeah, it's definitely like there's a lot of questions that I feel like are not answered yet. So just, yeah.
Period. The Cauldron retreats back to itself. Feyre's back with Amren, and she's okay. That was a lot what just happened. I just saw my literal husband turn into this creature, and I just saw my dad die, and my sisters kill him. And now she's back with Amren, and she's, oh yeah, this bitch just lied to me,
betrayed me. I do think that it's really interesting. I wonder if because why did the Cauldron take her to see all of that? It was like that. Like, to me, is this just convenient writing prose because you needed Feyre to be there because she's the person whose perspective this is from. So if she's not seeing it, she can't tell you about it. Because other than that, why did the Cauldron make her watch all of that just to bring her back to Amren?
I mean, it does make sense to me. Just obviously it was she was probably oh, I need to make people able to see through the Cauldron so that the ending makes sense, because yeah, you can't really have these huge scenes without Feyre there. And it makes sense to me because she's using the Cauldron, and the Cauldron was trying to find Nesta. So that's why she went to Nesta. And also when Nesta was scrying a few chapters ago, and Feyre went into her head, they weren't seeing through the Cauldron's eyes.
They were seeing through Nesta's eyes, and the Cauldron just happened to look at them. She felt it look at them, but they didn't see through the Cauldron's eyes, per se.
Right. Oh my god, I just, for some reason I thought they were looking through the Cauldron's eyes, but I'm no, they weren't, because they saw the Cauldron. That doesn't make fucking sense. That's literally just convenient writing. Which I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to say this, but I feel a lot of the ending is very convenient writing.
Yeah, some of it is gotta be, because it's just, like I said, I'm not mad at that per se, but I just was okay, Amren's just sitting there and she's smacking Feyre, wake up, girl, wake up. Yeah. And Feyre's just watching. Oh my god, I'm seeing so much crazy shit. And it's what was the Cauldron's purpose in showing her that?
Dude,
I didn't get why the Cauldron would want her to witness that. I just didn't get the purpose. So I was this has to be just for needing her to be present, because if Feyre's not there to see it, how can Feyre tell us about it as it's happening?
Right.
So I was oh, this is why. But when I brought it down logically, or broke it down logically, I was what would the purpose be? Especially if the Cauldron after it's done, the Cauldron just yeets her back into the regular world, and Amren's just standing there. Yeah, and it's just okay. Why did she go to sleep in the first place? I don't know. That was just weird to me, but maybe there's a reason. Somebody smarter than me can tell me. But I just was this feels like a convenient type thing versus a logical type thing. And that's okay. Reading sometimes you have to have things that are just convenient, because otherwise you're not going to be able to tell your story, and that 100% makes sense. But just in regards to the Cauldron, I was confused as to why it would have whipped her away and then brought her back just to be in the same place, because it seemed like it did all happen very fast, but I don't know. You get what I'm saying. You get what I mean. But anyways.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Amren starts to explain to Feyre what's happening. She's just, the Suriel's message was actually for me and only me. And once I heard it, I knew that. And basically, I need to unbind myself from my fucking body so I can destroy the entire army by myself. And I also was just girl, we didn't think of this earlier.
Yeah. I think she needed Feyre. She needed Feyre there. She was going to do that the whole time, but Feyre had to be there. Mm-hmm. And originally she thought she was going to need Feyre, Elain, and Nesta, because she didn't think Feyre was strong enough. But when Feyre got the mirror, that proved to her that she was strong enough to do it by herself, which might be why the Bone Carver wanted her to get the mirror in the first place. There might be a connective thread there that is it all fell into place because the Suriel, the Bone Carver, the Weaver, all of them were working together to make sure that this moment happened, because her getting the mirror is what proved to Amren that she could do it by herself, which is what allowed Nesta to lure the king away. So it could just be a falling in place dominoes type thing, but that is why she waited. Just because she could have turned at any time, but she needed Feyre.
Period. So she throws herself into the Cauldron, And she comes out in her true form, which she has burning wings and a crown of light. We talked about this a lot of times, but she's literally an archangel. She really talks about like her father here, how her father created her.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Even Sarah Maas literally said that. So yeah. It's not even like a theory at this point. It's just a fact. So she fucking flies out into the night and she like tells Feyre like, when I come out, don't run because it's gonna grab my attention. And I'm like, okay. So everyone's just staring at her like, oh, what the fuck? And she like goes over all the army, whips out everyone, super easy. Mm-hmm. She takes out the commander that we were talking about a little minute ago, that Elain was still fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she finally gets to the ocean where the last ship is, and she takes them out, and then her flame goes out. Varian is there. He's so upset. He's, my girl is dead. And that's the last of Amren.
That was...
Just 2 more pages, y'all. She's back.
That was so confusing to me, because why did her light go out? Why did she lose power?
Convenient writing.
But that's not really convenient writing, because you had to write her back into the story. So I don't think that you didn't have to have her die. She didn't intend on it 3 pages later.
I don't think she intended on her staying dead. I don't get why she even had her die if she's going to come back literally the next fucking chapter.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, why did you make her power burn out if you weren't going to kill her? Maybe she was like getting too close to the end and she was like, I can't write like them changing her like back, so I just have to have her die and this has to be the way it comes back. I don't know, but to me I was just like, why would her power run out? Like, what about her would indicate that? I guess everybody has power store, and so maybe that's just how magic works in this world. But I'm taking her as she is magic, but I'm taking her as more of something else, like a literal celestial being.
Since Amber's gone for now, and the cauldron is literally, it's broken. It's both a void, but it's literally growing. And I can't really destroy it, because if we destroy it, then it destroys all of us. Feyre realizes that she might be able to remake the cauldron, but during this, she's looking through like the book of breathing. She gets really frustrated and she throws it into the cauldron. And
that part, she just gets mad and yeets it into the cauldron. Did you think that was going to close the void? Did you think like... Why did we might need that? Now you don't have this book. But I guess her thing was like, no, now that Amren was dead, literally nobody knew how to read it. But it's just like, interesting choice of all the things you could do. You risked life and limb to get this fucking book on multiple occasions. And like, you just threw it into the void.
About getting this book.
Just threw it into the void without thinking about it.
Rhysand offers to help because he is the old mighty, powerful High Lord, the most powerful High Lord ever. And so they both start to remake the cauldron together. And it's really depleting him. She doesn't know this. And he keeps saying, I love you. But he's basically sacrificing himself because I have to like remake this, because if not, then we all will fucking die. So Feyre doesn't know any of this, and once the cauldron is remade, she looks behind her, and Rhysand's just, whoop, he's dead.
Okay, now here's the only thing that doesn't make sense about this to me, which I don't mind the way this happens, or no, I don't mind the concept of this happening, but the way it happens is a little bit confusing to me, because it's like, if she is the one who's made, so she's the one who has to fix the cauldron, why can Rhysand's power fix the cauldron?
You would think that...
Does it channel through
Elain
her?
And Nesta.
And I'm guessing that the idea is that they weren't close enough to get there fast enough. Like, it needed to be done pretty fast. And Rhysand was already there. But also, like, we know that Rhys has been talking about sacrificing himself this whole time. And he even makes a comment later that is like, either everything went right or everything went really wrong, which is another indication to me that he knew more than he was letting on to. I'm still very stuck on this fact that Rhys knows. I don't know how he knows. what he knows, if he was doing his own talking to the Suriel, the Weaver people, but Rhys knows something, and just the things that keep being said say that. But also, I am confused as to why he, as an unmade person, was able to use his magic, create the cauldron, unless he's made, and that's why he's so powerful, and nobody knows that. Maybe that's like the biggest kept secret in Prithian, is nobody knows that this motherfucker was made somehow. That would be a crazy twist, but...
would be a really crazy twist. I'm trying to think of how that would work logistically. I'm like, how would that fucking work? I don't know. But unless his ancestor is the one who maybe made the cauldron.
Could, maybe. Stay tuned for theories.
It's like another unnecessary death that doesn't make fucking sense.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of unnecessary deaths. So basically, the reason it's unnecessary is because, as we all know, Rhys doesn't stay dead for long. Feyre begs all the High Lords to save Rhys, which is the same thing that they did for her. Elain does tell her that it won't be the same because she was a human. Now, this is only relevant because I've asked so many times throughout these books, like, why is it that Rhys didn't get the same powers that Feyre did when he went through the same transition? And so the only thing I can think of is Elain's explaining it right now when he's saying it's not the same because he's already Fae. So maybe it's like something about like his powers already set, and so like when he came back, it was just like he didn't come back with extra powers. Maybe he's still hiding it from them, but yeah, that's just, he does say that, so I feel like that's important. Tarquin, of course, is the first to offer to help, and thanks for everything he did. So Tarquin's acknowledging that even though it hasn't always been the best between them, he is willing to make a sacrifice to help him, and thanks for his sacrifice. Everybody else steps in after that. Helion, Thesan, Callias, but Baron is standing back, so Mor like reaches out her sword and is like, you better step the fuck forward if you want to keep your head on your shoulders, because if not, I'll kill you, and then Eris will be High Lord, and then he can do it. Baron steps forward, drops the drop on him or whatever. And finally, Feyre drops her drop on there, which they have to explain to her how to do it because she has never been a High Lord. So she's trying to figure
someone.
She's trying to figure out how to do it. They explain to her the core of her power and how she pulls it out. She drops her drop. And then Feyre's kind of looking around like, why isn't he not up yet? What's going on? And then Tamlin comes out the woods out of nowhere and is like looking around. And she's, oh shit, that's what's missing. She's, please, I'll do anything. Please, just save him. And Tamlin just looks at her and he's, okay, look. Good moment for Tamlin, okay? Like, again, it's another step in the right direction on his redemption journey. Now, I will say, shortly after this, he goes right back to being an asshole. So it is very short-lived. But when it's big, like when it matters, like when lives are on the line, Tamlin does step up and do the right thing. And I will acknowledge that. He is like an asshole in his mannerisms for sure, the way he treats the people around him, the way he treats the people that care about him, definitely an asshole. But like I said, when it matters, when shit is about to hit the fan, when lives are on the line, he does end up doing the right thing in most scenarios. So I'll say that. It's a journey. It's called the journey, okay? He's making steps in his redemption journey. We'll see where that ends up. And I will say that reading this, I do think that this is a beautiful scene up until this point right here. And then it just starts going downhill and starts undercutting these sacrifices that they make. It's no mystery or no curiosity to anybody that like we are not fans of the killing and then bringing people back that Sarah J. Maas tends to do in a lot of her novels. It's not like, I understand where she's coming from. And so it's her personal choice. These are her books. She's allowed to do whatever she wants. And from a storytelling perspective, she has come out and said, my books have happy endings. And so I definitely understand why she doesn't want to kill off these people that her fan base loves and are obsessed with, like myself included. Like I would literally be shattered if Rhys had actually died like on the page and did not come back. I don't know what I would have done in that moment. But I do feel like the issue is when you do it repetitively, like she did here back to back, it takes away from me being worried about these characters in the future. Like we also know that it happens again in Silver Flames. You know, immediately Rhys and Feyre's lives are on the line, and they come back. They basically die, but then they're saved. And so it just can be a little bit like, she has every right to do it. It's her prerogative. She's the author. These are her books. But I do wish that it wasn't happening so often, to the point where it's like, now when people die in these books, it probably isn't that serious, because they're probably not going to stay dead for long. Like, the only person who really died in this book is Nesta, Feyre, and Elain's dad. And that was very sad, but he was a side character. He hasn't even been on the page from the first book till now, when he shows up for 2 seconds and then is gone again. So not the biggest fan of this choice of writing, but that being said, it does happen. Rhys comes back, he's saved, and not only does he come back, but he's like cracking jokes. Like, don't worry, like, I didn't take your powers. I'm not a thief over here. Okay, Rhys, we get it. You're so unserious. You didn't take it serious. But I do wonder if that plays into what I said earlier about he already knew what was going to happen, so he's not taking it as seriously, because like, he knew he was going to be brought back. He literally says either everything went right or everything went really wrong. So that implies to me that everything going right means that he knew he was going to come back from that some way, somehow. So either he's just really smart and realized that was an option and that Feyre could get the High Lords to do it, which is a possibility. He could be like gambling. Look, they did it for Feyre. If anybody can convince them to do it for me, it's probably Feyre. We know this option exists in this world. So I'm going to bet all my money on the fact that she would be able to do that. Or he knew already. There's that. But then also he like jokes. He's like, haha, by the way, I brought a friend. I got another surprise for you. Check the cauldron. And he checks the cauldron, or they go and look at the cauldron, and Amren calls back out. And it's okay. So back to back, 2 people that just died, these like beautiful, well, what I thought was beautiful, like meaningful deaths, like get brought back like immediately. And not only are they brought back, but it's like a big joke. And it's just, okay. It's not my favorite thing that she does in these books, if I'm being 100% honest. I still love these books, but it's just, this particular thing is something that like I take issue with, isn't even the right words. It just makes me be like, okay. That kind of really took my emotion out of it. It took me out of the emotional place that I was in. I was literally, the first time I read this, okay, for instance, the first time I read this, I was like gasping, hand over mouth. Oh my God, Rhys fucking died. And then I like flipped the page and he was brought back. And I was like, oh my God, like my system's in shock. Like I was just bawling. And now I'm like sucking the tears back into my face, because it's like, why am I crying over this dude? He didn't die. And then secondly, the second time that I read it, already knowing what was going to happen, I had no emotion about it at all. I was just like, all right, let's get through this. We already know what happened.
It made me like just side-eye it pretty hard.
You guys know that's not our favorite like thing that happens in these books. But after everything goes on, Amren comes back. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I talked about it, but she no longer has her magical, glowing, powerful eyes. She's just a regular high fae now. So Amren's back, Rhys is back, everybody's okay. They start to clean up. They start to take toll of the battle, and none of our main characters are dead. So they're all gathering together and getting back acquainted with each other and cleaning up and stuff. But the Archeron sisters do have to say goodbye to somebody, because they did lose somebody really important to them. So they go back to the clearing and they say their goodbyes to their father. Elain, sweet Elain, is the one who cleans him up, wipes him down, takes some flowers she found and puts them in his hair and makes him presentable. They point out that he's the only one who's not covered in blood, because King of Hybern snapped his neck and didn't cut him or anything. He doesn't have blood on him or anything. So he's just laying there peacefully. And they say their final goodbyes. And then Feyre uses the last of her power. What is the word? Like to conjure a flame and ignite his body so his ashes can fly off in the wind. Now, I swear I'm not trying to harp on these books, you guys, but why is Feyre constantly using the last bit of her power? It's every single time they talk about her in these books, like in this book towards the end, it's like the last stretches of my power. Oh, I was like the last depletion of my power, like the last little bit of power. But she always manages to get more or have enough power to do what she needs to do. I don't know. That strikes me as weird. It was just another instance of them being like the last bit of my magic to turn his body to ash. It's like, Okay. Whatever. Okay, I got you. There's no limit. The limit does not exist. They just keep saying that it does. Anyways, so they're standing there, they're saying their final, like watching his ashes float away, and Lucien walks up. And this is actually like where it starts to get cute again, because Lucien is looking at Elain and he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine." And I'm like, oh, wait a second. Elaine's actually talking to Lucien now. And Feyre, like, to cut the tension, goes up to him, gives him a hug, asks him about his journey, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And Lucien tells her, I got to spend time with your father. He was actually a great man. He really loved you three. He was so proud of you guys. And Feyre's like, wow, thanks. That's great to hear. Tell me more about Vasa and all this. And so Feyre kind of puts her arm in Lucien's arm and walks away. And if Nesta and Elain want to follow, they will. But Elain follows, and Nesta decides to stay there and continue to be where her father was. But Elain does follow, and Lucien looks at her and he's like, I heard you were the one who dealt the killing blow. And she was like, I didn't. It was Nesta. I just stabbed him in the neck.
Yeah.
I was like, go ahead, girl. Like, Nesta would not have been able to take that kill shot if it wasn't for you. So you definitely have a little bit of onus in it. And I still have questions about how you did it, baby girl. But it's just cute to see them finally actually communicating with each other. And like, she like leans past Feyre and looks at him a little bit. And it's just super cute. One other thing that Lucien says about their father is that he was a brilliant negotiator who made a deal with Vasa's keeper for her to come here temporarily. So now that we've read all the books, we know that Vasa's keeper is Koshai. So that's really interesting to me because it means that the Archeron father actually sat down with Koshai and made a deal with him. But it also leaves me with a big question, which is, what was the deal? Is that going to come back in any way? Are the Archerons going to owe him because the father wasn't able to co-sign on the deal, especially because we know that Vasa doesn't end up going back. And I don't really understand how that works either, because, and I really need to reread Frost and Starlight because I know they talk about her a lot in Frost and Starlight, but it just leaves me with questions because I know Elain and Rhys and Feyre are unable to break the curse. So, because it's tied to her blood. And so it's really questioning how she's able to resist going back to him, unless she's just exploiting the loophole where she could stay gone longer. But yeah, it definitely made me question like what he agreed to, what that deal actually was that he made with Koshai.
I don't know. I feel like we're obviously going to see Koshai and Vasa, hopefully.
Yeah, no, they're going to
another book.
I'm pretty sure they're going to be the big.
Yeah, no.
He's going to be the big bad. He might be up until the end, like the villain. So I definitely think there's going to be so many like more questions and answers about him. And then finally, Feyre asks what Lucien's plans are now that this is all over. And he kind of is like, oh, I'm going to help out around here. And then who knows where I'll end up. And Feyre like elbows Elain a little bit. And then Elain leans over and she's like, well, you could come to Valaris. And he's like, oh, that would be my pleasure. Okay. I'm like, what is going on here?
Your Elain voice.
Tell me she doesn't talk like that. She's very demure.
It's canon. Period.
No, literally. She's like, oh, well, you could come to Valaris. She's a freaking Disney princess.
Yeah, literally.
But so that's super cute. I'm just like, where is that going to leave off with them? Now I definitely am like, okay, this is officially who the fuck is she going to choose? Because it's like, she's finally at least talking to Lucien. Okay. She invited him to come stay at Valaris. That's a big step. Okay. And then we clearly know that her and Azriel are like homies. So this is very interesting. Obviously, we've had this discussion so many times about who we want her to end up with. And the answer always is both. I feel like I cannot choose. But yeah, hopefully we will get some freaking answers to that before I die. And then next we move on to the peace treaty meeting. So when they go back to the tents, like I said, Feyre meets Miryam and Drakon and they introduce themselves and they tell her that Rhys was telling them her story and she wants to know about them, but she says that she saw them fighting with Durian and she wants to know what happened. Did they kill him? And they say no, more of all people convinced them not to kill him, but they are still wary of him. So that's interesting. So I think Moore is definitely like his friend on his side at this point. And then Feyre asked them a huge question. She's like, I got a big favor to ask you. She's like, Shit's about to go down. Nobody's worried about the Cauldron right now because everybody's in chaos still. Everybody's recovering from the aftermath of the war. But eventually people are going to realize that the thing is still around and that it's this super powerful object. And somebody's going to want to claim it and say that it belongs to them. And none of these assholes can be left with the power of the Cauldron because they're all going to try to use it for their own gain.
Yep.
Do you think that you could take it to Cradia and hide it there? And the same way that you hid like for 300 years or whatever. And they're like, that's a big task, but I think that we can make it happen. So that not only shows that Feyre is like smart thinking about the next step, but it also really shows just how much Rhys and them trust Miryam and Drakon, because they don't trust any of these other High Lords, but they trust Miryam and Drakon to keep it safe and not use it to their own personal gain. That's just establishing just how trusting and tight they are as a unit, even though they haven't seen each other in so long. And then from there, Miryam and Drakon do help her set up the peace treaty meeting, which ends up being really important. And go Ellie for like suggesting this episodes ago about how they needed to be having weekly, like monthly meetings between all the High Lords and stuff to decide to be politically like on the same page or whatever. At least let's talk to each other. And
praise.
Like, so this is the first step with that. All the High Lords show up. Eris shows up with Baron. And it says they mostly ignore each other, but Feyre does notice that Eris looks at Lucien and has this sad look on his face, which we all know I'm here for an Eris redemption arc, or almost like I'm hesitant to even call it a redemption arc at this point. I'm more like, at this point in my mind, it's like Eris was never really the bad guy arc. Eris was misunderstood arc. I don't really, because the only thing we know that he did that was truly fucked up was what he did to Moore, but it seems like there's a lot of questions about what actually went down in that situation. So is he like the nicest guy to the inner circle? No, but like also look at how they treat him. So it makes sense. So like I said, past in my mind, I'm past thinking that Eris is going to have a redemption arc, and I'm on to we're just going to find out that he was never the bad guy in the first place. And so he looks at Lucien with this sad look in his eyes. And it makes me wonder if he knows that Lucien, like what the big secret is with him and why his father treats him like that. But it does also make me realize that he's not cool with the way that his dad treats Lucien. And so love that for him. And then Tamlin comes alone. And Tamlin decides that he's going to be rude to Lucien. So Lucien tries to walk up to him and he's like, oh my God, I'm so happy you're okay. And Tamlin just looks at him and is like, Illyrian fighting leathers, I see. And just like, he's like figures and like moves on. And so Lucien's, now's not the time for me to push this. We're going to have this conversation eventually. But what else did you want me to wear, dude? I had to put on some armor, okay? And these are the people I'm staying with right now because your ass went crazy and I had to fucking chase after your girlfriend. Then I found out that everything you said was a lie and she really wanted to be here and that this place was way cooler than the spring court. And then I wasn't even a spring court for me to come back to because you fucking ran that shit into the ground. And so what did you want me to do? What did you want me to do?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah. And then let's see. Oh yeah. Okay. And then the humans, they come to this meeting too. Grayson's still a dick, but he's with Durian, and at least he's here. They put him on the other side of the room because he doesn't want, he cannot be around these Fae. He needs to be as far away from them as possible. So he goes over there, and there's talks about whether the wall should go up or not. Some people want it to go up. Some people are wary of it going up because they don't want the Fae to have too much power or be able to access them too easily. So things are like a debate between that. But basically, there's just a lot of bickering and they don't really come to any sort of agreement, especially the High Lords, because it's like everything that the High Lords, like, they were all just in a treaty for this war. But this conversation really sends them all and they redraw the lines now that the wall's not there and they're all back on team themselves. And so that's really interesting. But she's like, at least it's a start. And she understands that there's going to be more meetings. This is going to be like a weekly NATO type situation now. Not weekly, but at least a couple times a year, these motherfuckers are going to get together and they're going to talk shit out and they're going to communicate with each other because communication is how we avoid war, okay? Like, it's just talk it out. So, so they're going to talk to each other, see if they can come to agreement. And it's okay if they don't agree on everything. And Feyre realizes that. But at least she's starting to see this is how the future can be going forward. And they're setting up good habits and good practices. And then, after cleaning up the mess of the war and breaking down the camps, and everything, we finally come to the end of this era of Akhtar, and the inner circle returns to Valaris. Amren immediately makes this insensitive joke about Nesta, like cutting off the King of Hybern's head and putting it on a wall or whatever. And I think it was Moore who was like, that was in poor taste. And she's like, I can do whatever I want. I saved all of your lives and you're not going to tell me like what I can and cannot say. And I'm like, oh, Amren's still feisty as ever. She's also complaining about the fact that she has to eat human food now. She's like, I guess I'll have to eat the food that you idiots eat. And they're like, oh God, what a sacrifice. You can't drink your goblets of blood anymore. Amren goes on her way, goes back to her apartment, and the rest of them go back to the townhouse. And Nesta is clearly still struggling. Like, she's wearing it on her face. She is not doing well. The progress that she has made throughout this entire book is lost. She is retreating into herself. She is not like even her feisty normal self that she was before. She's just really quiet. She's not really paying any attention to anybody. Oh, one thing I forgot to talk about earlier. Oh shit. Earlier, they were at the meeting. Vasa comes up to them, and Vasa is talking to Feyre, and Vasa's like, well, your father was like a second father to me. He treated me even better than my own father, and you were so lucky to have him. And Nesta's just looking at her like staring daggers at this bitch, because it's like, he was never a father to me. Not never, but like he hadn't been a father to me in a very long time. And he finally steps up, and I don't even get to spend time with him while he's stepping up. And then as soon as I get to be around him again, he gets murdered in front of me. So thanks for letting me know he was like a second dad to you. That's great. I'm super happy.
Oh my God, I'm kind of like, girl, why did you have to say that? Oh my God.
She doesn't know. She doesn't know how he, like, their relationship before that. You know what I mean? Like, she doesn't know the vehemence had.
If they were close, you think that at least he would tell her, like, oh, me and, like, my daughters haven't always been, like, the closest. Like, you would think that would come up.
No, he definitely did. He even, because Lucien says something about that. Lucien's like, Drakon was like, he said he didn't do right by his daughters and he wasn't going to fail them again or whatever. So he's definitely talked about, but I think maybe she just didn't, like, she was trying to say nice things about him. It definitely is insensitive, but it's just like, I don't think she was thinking like that, which is a mistake, because it's like, girl, why did you have to say that? And when she was like, Nesta was giving her a unsatisfied look or whatever, I was like, yeah, I know that bitch was staring daggers at her, because she was like, oh, he was a father to you, huh? And that was an interesting choice of words. But let's be real here too. Vasa has not had the best relationship. Like, her father straight up sold her into slavery, if anything's to be believed. So
anything's a little bit better.
Yes, she's father-daughter relationships. I don't know anything about it. But yeah, that was interesting. And then one other thing while I'm talking about her still, because I definitely just skipped over this earlier, but Vasa asked Feyre if she can help break the curse on her, because Feyre, curse breaker, hello. And she's like, basically, we'll see what we can do, but I don't know. And then I did mention this earlier, but Frost and Starlight, we find out that she cannot, in fact, help her, that Rhys can't help her, Elain can't help her, nobody can. And they say it's because her magic is tied to her blood, like it was a blood bond or something, and not a spell that was put on her or a curse. So very interesting, something to keep in mind. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about some of this at the end, so stay posted if you're interested in hearing more about that. But back to the end of an era. Nesta, like I said, is struggling. She's not doing well. She hasn't really talked to anybody. Like, her staring daggers at Vasa is like the most emotion she's had over these last few days. And Elain, who seems to actually be doing like so much better. Elain seems to be like, where this really shook Nesta and made shit worse for her, Elain seems to be doing way better than she was before. Really interesting to me. Because Elain has been struggling, quiet, depressed this whole time. And it's like the war finally being over opened her up and brought her back to her natural self. Whereas with Nesta, obviously the trauma of her father and all that did the opposite and reverted her to her previous self and worse. But Elaine's asking Feyre, what are we going to do about Nesta? Should we help her? And Feyre's like, yes, like we should help her, but not today and not tomorrow and probably a long time from now when she's ready for it and we're ready for it too. And I guess I could just go ahead and talk about it now, but I do think that both of these things are situations where we were talking about foreshadowing for future books, which we know that this is foreshadowing book where basically we get to the plot, or this is like a little tiny breakdown of the plot of Silver Flames, where Nesta literally like pushes the sisters to the breaking point and they tell her like, okay, now's the time. You have to get your shit together. This isn't an option anymore. You have been messing up for too long. You have no choice but to let us help you. You can either let us help you or you can go back to the human lands because you can't stay here acting like this. And that is literally the plot takeoff point for Silver Flames. And then with Elain, it makes me think that this is what we are going to get for her book whenever it happens. And it just says, like I said, all about like, you know, again, she's happy, she's doing much better. But there's a specific quote that kind of caught my attention. And this might low-key be a little bit of a theory, but it only has to do with ACOTAR. So I feel safe to talk about it here. But Elain smiled up at me and it was tentative joy, a life that shone in her eyes, a promise of the future, gleaming and sweet. But the word life is italicized. And so I am really interested in this, okay? Because is this a nod to something about Elaine's powers, about what her journey is? Because why is life italicized? And also, we do know that spring is literally the representation of like new life, rebirth. All of that is associated with spring. They keep comparing her to spring, flowers. It just really stood out to me. I was like, why is life italicized? There is something up with her and the spring court. And I really, really do not want it to be anything that has to do with Tamlin. But you cannot tell me that this is just coincidental. I don't know. We've talked about it many times, so we don't have to dwell on it too long. But it's just like, this sentence is very interesting. And a promise of the future, gleaming and sweet. We know that she can literally see the future, and a life that shone in her eyes. A life. Is that what Elain took from the Cauldron? Like where Nesta took death, Elaine's power is life. I really think that this matters in some way and that this is going to come back up again.
I'm thinking. If her power is life, I feel like that makes sense because even if she's a seer, what if her seeing powers all have to do with knowing someone's death? Because we know that she saw Cassian probably die.
She also saw
I wonder if maybe
and Vasa though, and then Bran.
Right.
But I guess that could have maybe had to do with Nesta's death in the future, but not really. I don't know.
I would be so down if her power is. I feel like her power already is pretty much life. If she's like the grower of things, I don't know.
Yeah, but it just makes sense to me. It's like they repetitively refer to Nesta as death and compare her to death. So it just makes a lot of sense that Elain would be the comparison to life, and that this quote specifically is highlighting, if you will, if not italicizing that fact by italicizing that one word in this sentence. That matters. Like I feel like when authors do that, it typically means something. You don't just italicize one word out of nowhere for no reason. And in conjunction with Elain, I feel like that's definitely, it's like where night and day are counterparts, like life and death are counterparts. And so I really think we're going to end up seeing a lot more from Elain. And I think that her power is in some way like all the shit that Nesta can do, but in regards to death is going to be like the type of shit that Elain can do in regards to life. So just keep your eye out for that, guys. I'm pretty freaking confident in that if I'm being 100% honest. And so, yes, back to the ending. We are done with everybody else. The only thing left is Feyre and Rhys's last moments in these books. They each get a chapter from their perspective. And they're lamenting basically on what they're going to do now and what their futures look like now that the big enemy is defeated and there's no more fighting, and what are they going to do. Right now, kids aren't on the table, so it's very interesting. They're like, thinking about, what are we going to do together? We just want to enjoy our time and enjoy our friends and family with no threat looming over us. And so what do? They make a death pact with each other, because what else would you do? Feyre's like, bro, when you died, I was really scared. I really missed you. I really was worried about you, that something was going to happen. And he's like, oh, babe girl, you don't have to worry about that. Let's make a pact. Next time we go, let's do it together. She's like, oh, that's a great idea. He's like, it's a bargain. And then all of a sudden, a tattoo shows up on their arm.
It's giving attachment problems.
Irresponsible. I understand.
Yo, I can't.
The tensions are high after you almost lost the other one, but come on. A death pact?
I hate death pacts. That's one of my least favorite tropes ever. I fucking hate them.
Death pact?
That sounds like a stupid idea.
I'm
sorry.
Hate it, but it's like,
I fucking hate it.
I don't
because I will say, you should be able to survive without your person.
Yeah.
You should.
But these are fiction, to be fair.
I know, but I'm just saying they should be able to survive.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm looking at this with the air of, they like, she definitely could survive. I guess the thing is, she's like, I don't want to survive, which in real life, very bad. In books, I'm like, it's fiction. So I don't necessarily hate it, but I do hate it in this subject. I don't.
It's just kind of random as fuck. And also there's an issue with it.
Yeah, it literally comes back to bite them in the ass, which I almost am like, is this just in here for that reason? But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like, maybe I do hate it. I don't know. I just feel like there's very specific situations where I'm like, okay. But
the situation doesn't make sense because they're immortal. They don't know what they're going to do in their future.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you make a death pact if you still have so much time? Maybe it's different if you're on the freaking brink of death and you're just like, whatever. But you're not
really gonna. If you're on the brink of death, it's like there's no point in making a death pact. We're going. But
death pacts just don't make sense to me. I literally don't understand them. Like, why?
You have to think. My thing is, you have to think. It's the fact that they can live forever is why it's relevant. It's why it makes sense. I've read books where like one of them is immortal and one of them is not. So it's like, if one of them is going to live forever, they're like, I don't want to live without you. Like, when you go, I'm going. That situation makes sense to me. And then I've also read, like, in this situation, it makes sense to me because it's like, we could live forever. We could live for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. You're my mate, certified on paper mate. If you die, I don't want to have to live for thousands and thousands of years without my person, never knowing when I'm gonna die. So it's like, on one hand, like I said, real life, not good, but in fiction, I kind of understand because, especially in this situation, it's like, I don't want to live for 8,000 years without you. So I get it, but it's not my favorite. I don't know, but also I do think that this shit has to change after Silver Flames. It was convenient up until this point, and it made the tension in Silver Flames be what it was. But now that you have a child to think about, you all cannot be like, if one of us dies, we both die. You have children to think about. Who's going to take care of your kid if you both die? Especially unnecessarily. It's one thing if you both just die because of natural circumstances, but it's like one of you gets shot on a hunting expedition and the other one dies in the kitchen while she's cooking dinner. So
I don't know. I'm not a death pact girly.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, to me, I can understand it. It's not necessarily my favorite thing. I don't hate it. It just, in this scenario, I really don't like it, and it especially doesn't make sense after Silver Flames. But anyways, and then this other thing, which is just so funny to me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I really was not just trying to rip on these books in this, but it's just like, this is hilarious. So when Feyre comes up to meet with Rhys, she's in this like see-through sexy ass like nightgown, and she's got on the red lingerie that she was like teasing him about buying in the second book on underneath her stuff because the shopkeepers gifted it to her for saving the city or whatever. And so she's all dressed up and they're having this conversation and they're flirting with each other, and then Rhys is like, let's go fly. And he just picks up Feyre and like starts flying with her over Valaris, which cool, great, fun moment. She's in a see-through nightgown with lingerie on, just flying over the city. Waving down at people until she like starts to fly herself. And it's okay, again, great, fun. She's just in lingerie while she's doing this.
No comment.
Makes no sense to me. Hilarious visuals. It's just what? Listen, it's cute. I'm happy that they end up together. I'm happy that they have their people. I'm happy that they love each other so much that they're like, I don't want to live without you. While ill-advised to actually make that a official thing, I think it's cute. Like, good for you. I'm happy for you. But this whole last thing is just kind of like, okay. Like, I know that there was another book already in plan, so she wasn't treating it like this was going to be the last ACOTAR book ever. But it is a very interesting, very funny ending for this super kind of serious, tense book that was building up to all this fun, interesting ending. So yeah, but that's it, guys. That's ACOTAR. That is everything. They made it. They won the war. Things are not quite perfect, but they're headed in the right direction. And yeah, I guess eventually we might talk about what happens in Frost and Starlight. That being said, couple things left that I wanted to talk about. Just a couple, because I really did already touch on the Vasa thing about them not being able to break her curse. I might talk about it a little bit more in the next section, but I do feel like it's pretty significant, and something to think about is that when the cauldron breaks, it specifically breaks into 3 pieces. Now, 3 and 7 are very important and popular numbers in these books. And so that was just very interesting to me. I was like, 3 pieces, 3 sisters, 3 faces of a goddess. He was the number that she had to pick when she was doing her trial with Lucien in the first book. 3 is the number of people in her family after Silver Flames. 3 Bat Boys. Like, 3 is a very specific number that comes up a lot in here. So I just think it's very interesting that the cauldron specifically broke into 3 pieces. It does make me wonder if it has something to do with the Mother Maiden Crone situation, or I don't know, or if it was supposed to be the 3 pieces of the Archeron sisters, but I don't know, because Feyre's power isn't actually tied to the cauldron. So I don't know, but I feel like it matters that it was 3 pieces.
I wonder if the sisters are going to have to get the 3 pieces, and that'll be the end of the cauldron.
Well, they already put it back together.
I know, but what if something's going to happen with it, so I'm like, I don't know. I'm just thinking.
I was like, it would have made more sense if the 3 of them had to put it together, and they each had
that's what I was saying. It would make so much more sense if it was them. I feel like it's been such a cool moment.
Yeah, the 3 of them like uniting and putting the pieces back together.
Yeah,
that would have been definitely. Maybe like Rhys was like, I can't have them, all 3 of them touch it, because if they do, they're about to turn into the most 3 powerful bitches in Prithia. And what if like they did that shit and it was like putting the rings together on Captain Planet, and they all just fucking souped out and became like super powerful, like they reached their ultimate forms after they put the 3 pieces of the cauldron together, and they just become gods in Prithian. And so they had to avoid that. Rhys was like, nah, I'll die.
No, he probably would.
Can't have Nesta running around here as a god. I'll die. But anyways, yes, that's ACOTAR.
The first part was really good. It was really just this section, I think, that kind of wasn't the greatest. A lot of it just doesn't make sense, and I don't like it when things don't make sense, because I'm like, what? I don't know. Maybe in future books more stuff will be explained, but I do feel like there are a lot of plot holes that we pointed out.
Yeah.
In this book, like, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough because you don't know if they're plot holes because they're plot holes, right, or if they're plot holes because we don't have the answers yet. Mm-hmm. And like I think I've said before, it's like it's almost hard to tell, because it's at this point she could retcon things and fix a lot of these plot holes if she has the mind to in future books. But at this point, it's going to be a minute. I don't even...
It's going to be a minute.
So I don't even know. But yeah, like I said, I really don't want to hate on these books. Like, there's no hate. And I'm not going to say... I still love these books. They are like... They're a vibe. A vibe is a very good description for these. Like, they're not perfectly written, but they are super fun, and I love the characters, and I love the journey that most of the characters go on, and so I will always like love these books. Basically, if you love these books, I do too. I'm not hating on anything, but just definitely deep diving these books has made me just look with a much closer eye, and some of this stuff I'm just like, dude, I really am looking at the next book like, when am I going to get it? Because I need answers. I need answers. And House of Flame and Shadow only left me with more questions. But all right, there's really only a couple more things we're going to talk about, but they do include spoilers for other books in the Sarah J. Maas universe. So thank you for staying with us this far. We have enjoyed breaking down these books with you guys. Thank you so much. But if you have not read all of the books in the Sarah J. Maas universe, including House of Flame and Shadow, now's your time to exit the conversation and come back and join us when you have. Like we said, thank you for hanging out with us this long. It's been so much fun. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one when we come back. So we talked about this theory before, very in depth, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But back when we were talking about the shifting and the shifting forms of the High Lords, I was brought back to our discussion about the High Lords possibly being descendants from the Throne of Glass universe. There's just a few things, like the fact that every single High Lord has a shifting ability, but they're the only people in Prythian that have that. And then Tamlin specifically being known as the shape-shifting one, you know that we think that it's Lysandra and Aedion that he comes from. So it would make sense if his line had more of a shape-shifting capability than the rest of the High Lords. However, all of the Fae in Aurelia can shift into different forms, whether it's Elain who shifts into her Fae form, Rowan who shifts into a hawk, Fenris turns into a wolf. They all shape into different animals. And so they have that capability. And then Rhysand in House and Sky and Breath points out that there was two kinds of Fae from two different worlds, which we have been led to believe are ACOTAR world and Throne of Glass world. And he specifically says that the Throne of Glass world Fae were all shifters. So it only makes sense to me if those Fae from that world are the ancestors of the High Lords specifically. Not all of the Fae and Prythian, but specifically the High Lords. Even after House of Flame and Shadow, we still do not know how the High Lords came into power, how they were chosen, how they came to be. Because before the High Lords, there was a High King named Fionn, or Finn, or whatever. So we know that at some point they killed him, and then courts were set in place, but we don't know how they picked the people that were the leads for the courts. So at this point in my mind, I'm thinking that they were more gifted magical Fae, that they chose to be these people in power, and that they eventually, if you go back far enough, would be the descendants of the main characters from Throne of Glass.
I really hope that's true. I think it would be such a cool tie-in.
It would really.
It would just be it'd be really, really cool connection between all of them. We'd all be like, oh my god, it'd be so cool. Also, it makes sense if Tamlin was related to Aedion, but
it would make so much sense. But also, what's also really cool about that is that we also know that a lot of the people in Throne of Glass are also descended from the gods.
Right.
So that would explain certain things about certain characters and their different capabilities in regards to why everybody has the magic they did. Because I was curious about the Darkbringers also having shadows like Azriel, and just a few other things like that throughout this, where it's like, you know, Rhys having access to all these different powers that the rest of them don't have. Where does his Demise ability come from? All of that. It just would make sense if some of them were also descended from the gods, especially the Archeron sisters, because there's something more to their lineage as well. They are more than just humans, sure. Like 1,000%. Yeah. So just very curious, very interesting tie-in. And then I guess, like I mentioned it, I didn't do enough research on this, so I don't want to like delve too far into it. But there is a specific quote in House of Flame and Shadow. No. A Court of Frost and Starlight. Sorry, I'm getting my facets mixed up. But in a Court of Frost and Starlight, where they're talking about healing Vasa and breaking the curse, And they tell her it's not a curse like magic. It's a curse that's bound to her blood. So they're unable to remove it. And that just makes me question her lineage, where she comes from, what Koshai did to her. That's not a regular Fae bargain or curse. There's something much deeper there. How did he bond her in this blood connection or whatever? I don't know. So that was really interesting to me. I couldn't even find a lot of answers. That's why I said I didn't do too much research. There was just a bunch of people who noticed the same thing as me, but there's nothing really like solid or confirmed. I think one person, and I really wish I could remember where I saw this, but said something along the lines of there was something in Throne of Glass where they like made deals in blood or dealing with blood or something like that. And if that could have something to do with it, but I'm not 100% sure. But definitely leads again to the fact that Koshai and the Weaver and the Bone Carver are from a different world, different concept. They're not just he's not just a regular ass sorcerer, basically.
I've seen like theories of like people connecting him to Crescent City, and I'm just curious. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen people asking about him being the astrologer, whatever, astronomer.
Astronomer or astrologer or something like that.
One of the two. I've seen connection theories about that. I don't know how much I buy into them because I don't know. I feel like we haven't gotten enough of Koshai yet. Even a solid description about him.
We haven't even like technically met him.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't even get. Well, Nesta did speak with him, but I feel like she didn't describe him.
It's like very brief though. Yeah. Like it's like super brief. I feel like the mystery is there for a purpose.
Oh yeah. In my thought process, he's going to be the ending big bad of ACOTAR. Mm-hmm. We will see. Yeah, I don't know, but I want to say he's a Vogue, but it's like I can't confirm that because we just don't have enough information. Right. And if he is a Vogue, it's like, why is he so much more powerful than his brother and sister? Because you have to remember, he's so powerful that the Bone Carver hid himself in the prison because he was afraid of him. I don't know, man. I don't know. But hopefully these are all questions that we will get answers to in the future because as you guys know, we got a lot. We got a lot of questions. And I'm hoping that eventually we'll get to sit here and talk about another book with you. All right, guys. We do hope that you guys enjoyed our discussion today and all of our breakdowns of the ACOTAR series. Thank you guys so much for all the support that you've shown us. It means so much to us. All the DMs, the comments, just taking the time to reach out to us and let us know what you appreciate, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. It really means the world to us. So thank you so much. We will be taking a break in September and we'll be coming back early October to mid-October with new episodes and new topics. So that said, please feel free to email or DM us on Instagram with any book or series recommendations, pop culture or literary topics, as well as any other fun ideas that you guys think would be good for us to cover in our future episodes. Finally, if you've made it this far and you're still watching, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please review and rate the pod. And either way, share us with your bookish friends and give us a follow over on Instagram and TikTok. We have tons of bookish content over there, and we will still be semi-active during our break. So if you want to stay up to date and all of that, check us out over on Instagram and TikTok. And with that, guys, we're going to leave you as a quote with always. I had to take it back to the official line quote of ACOTAR for this. So, to the stars who listen and the dreams that are answered. All right, guys. Bye.